We've got a couple clips of Fox News liberal Jessica Tarlov having to once again shut down her MAGA co-host despite the election now being over and them undoubtedly going to switch tune on the economy being great and remarkable the first day Trump steps into office, while Jesse and the others in this lame duck period are still trying to discredit Biden's successes, of which happen to just dwarf Trump casually. So I wanted to look over these clips and discuss.
The legacy of Joe Biden will be obviously complicated by how this ended and with Kamala losing, but he oversaw the best recovery in the G7 by far and away. Inflation in this country is lower. Unemployment in this country is lower. He expanded the number of people who got access to affordable health care, Medicaid expansion. We are producing more oil than any other time in world history under Joe Biden. The stock market, it was generous of you to give it. Donald Trump is out there trying to pretend that it's because he's coming back, that's why everyone is so hyped about this. We have been hitting record after record after record under Joe Biden.
Now, don't get me wrong, there are things from a lefty perspective that very much do hinder Biden's legacy. The genocide in Gaza, giving up his campaign promise of a public option in healthcare, not being a transitional president as he ran on, which constantly put us in a scramble once he stepped out and led to a second Trump term. But if we sit back and analyze legislation, right? Impact of legislation, effect on economic trends. I mean, there's a really good chance that even after these next 4 years, Biden will have passed more bills than Trump in half the time. I mean, it's currently 7-1 in Biden's favor. We have quite literally Biden, the most legislatively effective president, and the most legislatively ineffective president in Trump. Yet people try to say Trump is better because he inherited a better starting point. So like they don't understand correlation versus causation, which is why analyzing trends is really important in critical thinking and understanding causation. You can't draw a one-to-one line from any Trump policy to a change in economic trend. He largely just rode Obama's coattails to most of the metrics he likes to tout. And if anything, his tax cuts and tariffs actually cost consumers money, cost us jobs, all pre-pandemic, and middle-class incomes grew at a slightly slower rate than they did under Obama. Meanwhile, Biden single-handedly turned around the inflationary trend, the GDP trend, the wage trend, the employment trend, and saw more overall growth in those latter three metrics than Trump, and more in any of those than any other developed country in the world. So you can't just say, well, that's the trend of rebounding from COVID, because no, he even broke from that and saw it in a not only faster, but stronger means, all while strengthening our position abroad as well with NATO, with allies, and trade deals, climate deals. I mean, it's really no comparison in terms of legislative governmenting that kind of success and the actual effect you can see on policy between the two. That's why they focus on like culture war issues and immigrants getting in through the border and all of this kinds of things. Because the policy, I mean, there's no discussion to be had.
In terms of the jobs that you say are mirages, we can talk about all the revisions that happened under other presidents as well. But even if you removed all of the jobs that we lost during COVID, the snapback jobs, I think is what you called them, under the Biden-Harris administration, we still got more jobs at a faster clip than we did under the Trump administration. It's just a fact. Look it up, historian number 3.
She is exactly right here. And even with that, however, I've always thought the trying to discredit Biden for recouping lost jobs, and that doesn't count as the same. I think it's a weird line of argumentation at best. It's very weak. He absolutely still should get the credit for recovering jobs. Trump would absolutely still get the credit for recovering the jobs from MAGA. I mean, if he failed to recover the jobs, MAGA would absolutely be blaming him for him. And it's not like recovering the jobs is an automatic or a given. It's not like he recovered them in trend with other countries. We recover them faster. We recover them in a larger magnitude. People pretend that it's just quite literally as simple as like, it's just an automatic or a given, right? Like so many people in terms of how the jobs were lost, like they quit, got remote jobs, changed industries. Maybe they retired, like whatever it might be. Maybe they moved, right? It's not like they just left work and were just waiting around and just came back to the same position with no government input. Like it was all just between them and their boss. And as Jessica said, if you even take out COVID jobs, we've still created more total than Trump did. We've created them at a higher average monthly clip than Trump did and at a faster rate than Trump did, while also maintaining higher wages that outpace inflation, higher stock market closings, something that Trump didn't manage to do during his entire presidency.
In this speech, he's talking about rural broadband. okay? And he's talking about how great rural broadband is. And then he was pressed for numbers. How many people, Mr. President, have been connected? Zero. And you know how much they spent? $42 billion.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's just one example.
Right. So as the resident historian at the table, I have a bachelor's in history. That's the only reason.
So do I.
Oh my God, it's honestly so infuriating the way that these corporate fucks make a living off of preying off of people's laziness. Like the fact that they know that there's a large constituency that just wants to hear Democrat bad and won't do any research outside of like what Fox News shoves down their pathetic little throat. And at this point, it allows Fox to have this endless profit machine where all they have to do is lie and feed into this nonsense. And who cares about like credibility or anything else? I mean, Trump is going to carry water for them in that regard anyway, and just saying like everything else is fake news. So like, just go to Fox. And I'm tired of them pretending that federally funded projects that don't start immediately just mean that like Democrats stole the money or they're not going to happen. Like when this just isn't how federally funded projects work. Maybe they know that if Trump didn't fail to pass infrastructure for 4 straight years after promising to do it week after week. But especially when coordinating between the federal and state level, these things take time. I mean, which is why in the case of like rural broadband, they're usually laid out in 10-year plans where construction typically starts around 5 years into that. But these applications have been approved in 34 states already, right? Construction to start sometime next year, right? Along with other facets of the investment already beginning. Internet for tribal areas and homes have already begun. The middle mile and fiber replacement have already started these programs. I mean, Fox wants you to believe that when we're talking about literal billions of dollars, tens of thousands of jobs, like personnel, across thousands of miles, like this kind of massive coordination, that you're just supposed to be able to organize, coordinate, and begin this within like a week. These are major programs. Like it's not as simple as like, here's $50 to get supplies to build a lemonade stand. And the worst part about all of this is now Trump can come in, find ways to like redivert the funding, put the program on hold, possibly cancel it altogether, and then just be like, aha, Democrats bad. They promised this and never delivered. And his entire base will blame Biden because of like things like Fox News. They don't understand how these kinds of projects work, despite it would have been Trump's fault that they didn't get the internet that is much needed in these rural areas where Biden was targeting them for. But that's politics in 2024.